Hello, welcome to Shall We Consider? Today we are going to consider the movie Network from 1976. That's also the year of the American Bicentennial. This is a very thought-provoking film. It looks at the dark side of television news. It tells the story of Howard Beale, who's played by Peter Finch. Academy Award-winning performance, by the way. And Howard is an aging anchorman. He's at the end of his career. His ratings are going way down, and the network fires him. Now, he's supposed to appear again on TV, and he has a meltdown. In fact, he threatens suicide. But guess what? This bizarre incident actually turned into a ratings goldmine. So the network, they wanted to exploit it for all it was worth. And poor Howard continued into his descent into madness. Now, the film also criticizes the media industry as a whole. It's where the news corporations prioritize their ratings and profit over authenticity and the truth. Howard's transformation into a raging, ranting populist reflects the film's critique of media manipulation and its ability to exploit public anxieties. Let's take a look.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Man, that is one hell of a performance. Now, also in the film, we have William Holden and Faye Dunaway. Holden plays Max Schumacher, who is Howard Beale's boss and his friend. Max represents the traditional integrity-driven journalism. Think of Walter Cronkite or Edward R. Murrow. This type of journalism is facing its decline. Now, Max wants to shield Howard from the network's exploitation, but he feels powerless against the changing media landscape. And he is attracted to the new lady at the network. Her name's Diana Christensen, and she is played by Faye Dunaway. And she's the new kid on the block. She's got all the answers. She embodies the ruthless new way of media. It's focused on sensationalism. If it bleeds, it leads. And of course, big-time ratings. She wants to exploit Howard for anything she can get. And she has no real concern about journalistic ethics. Now, she thinks that she's got the American psyche figured out. So let's see what she says.
In a nutshell, it's it. The American people are turning sullen. They've been clobbered on all sides by Vietnam, Watergate, the inflation, the depression. They've turned off, shot up, and they fuck themselves limp, and nothing helps. So, this concept analysis report concludes the American people want somebody to articulate their rage for them. I've been telling you people since I took this job 6 months ago that I want angry shows. I don't want conventional programming on this network. I want counterculture. I want anti-establishment.
Wow. Great performance. Faye Dunaway also won an Academy Award. Now, this was during the 70s, and it was post-World War II, and the economic growth was amazing. Even though in the mid-70s you started to see a downturn, the middle class was still strong and unions were viable. Now, despite this discontent, there was not as much protest as there was in the 60s. However, many were opposed to the Vietnam War. Now, earlier in 1971, Richard M. Nixon, our president, Tricky Dick, removed the United States from the gold standard, and that paved the way for globalization. What did this mean? Corporations started to restructure. They focused beyond production. This was the rise of mobilized capital, offshoring of labor, and the beginnings of financialization. Robert Duvall is also in this film. He plays Frank Hackett. He's an intermediary between the network and the corporate overlords. He is ruthless in his pursuit of profits. He is ambitious, but he lacks finesse. He wants to turn the failing UBS, the United Broadcast System, into a financial success for the CCA, the powerful media corporation. Now, Ned Beatty plays a small role, but very memorable. He represents the cold, calculating hand of corporate control over media. He is the director of the Communications Corporation of America, CCA. He wields his immense power over the network, and he delivers an amazing, intimidating speech to Howard Beale. This is an epic performance.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rins, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale? You get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon. Those are the nations of the world today. What do you think the Russians talk about in their councils of state? Karl Marx? They get out their linear programming charts, statistical decision theories, Minimax solutions, and compute the price-cost probabilities of their transactions and investments, just like we do. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale. It has been since man crawled out of the slime. And our children will live, Mr. Beale, to see that perfect world in which there's no war or famine, oppression or brutality. One vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit, in which all men will hold a share of stock, all necessities provided, all anxieties tranquilized.
That was powerful stuff. Now, he does remind me of somebody in the 2020s.
You will pay for what you've done, and I pray that God send angels to visit vengeance upon you. But none of us will harm a hair on your filthy, murderous heads. But God will crush you. Crush you! You will be destroyed, not us.
Wow. I wouldn't want to piss that guy off. But the content of Jensen's speech reminded me a little more like this guy.
It's companies which drive innovation. It's companies who, in a competitive way, drive the fourth industrial revolution, drive social benefits, and so on. Now, the problem which we have is when we talk about capital, we think of financial capital. But actually, what you need for wealth creation is not just financial capital. It's human capital, it's social capital, it's natural capital. So we need to embrace a much larger definition of capital, and all those capitals create in a shared way wealth, and indirectly or directly for a country prosperity.
Okay, Alex Jones and Klaus Schwab are kind of like cartoon characters, but some of what they say is very serious. If you listen to Arthur Jensen's speech, he talks about business with no ideologies, no countries. You listen to Klaus Schwab talk about human, social, and natural capital. What exactly does all that mean? Well, let's listen to independent journalist Whitney Webb and what she has to say about some of that.
Well, the other side of it is turning everything into a commodity, including things that aren't currently part of the economic system. So that's things like financializing what they call natural capital, or the financial world. Also human capital and social capital. And they've even been pitching, I think, in outlets like New York Magazine, I think it was, like basically selling stock in yourself and like in your future, and like how much money you'll make after a time, and like people can buy stock in your life. I mean, it's getting that
your favorite blockchain wants to do this. Ethereum wants people to be able to sell personal equity in themselves.
Favorite.
Now, Whitney and her friends were having a little bit of fun, but Whitney's very serious about what she writes about. And this capital, human, social, and natural, That's related to global capitalism. And basically, it's a type of corporate management that's based on a collective marketplace, and it transcends geopolitical borders and is not subject to regulation by nation states. Some people are not on board with this. There are globalists. There are many who believe that it's better to have a kind of stakeholder capitalism. And the interesting thing is, though, if this power is transferred to multinational syndicates, it doesn't allow for a lot of room for democracy, nations, or individuals. So if you think about BlackRock, Vanguard, Blackstreet, along with Facebook, Google, and Amazon, that's a lot of data. That's a lot of money. Is it possible that these companies are the new faces of a technocratic financial fascism? That's a pretty bold statement, but let's go back to the movie. After his lesson with Mr. Jensen, Beale returns for another appearance, but he's no longer a savior. He is a messenger of doom and finality.
What is finished is the idea that this great country is dedicated to the freedom and flourishing of every individual in it. It's the individual that's finished. It's the single, solitary human being that's finished. It's every single one of you out there that's finished. Because this is no longer a nation of independent individuals. It's a nation of some 200-odd million transistorized, deodorized, whiter than white, steel-belted bodies, totally unnecessary as human beings and as replaceable as piston rods. Well, the time has come to say, is dehumanization such a bad word? Because good or bad, that's what is so. The whole world is becoming humanoid, creatures that look human but aren't.
This really is an amazing film. It was directed by Sidney Lumet, and it was written by Paddy Chayefsky. He was an award-winning screenwriter. This is a scathing critique of media manipulation by corporations, which was in the 70s, and it continues to resonate today. Now, think about this. In those days, there was only 3 television networks. We didn't have Fox yet, so it was ABC, CBS, NBC. Now think about today, and think about the fragmentation. It's an explosion of media outlets. They estimate as many as 3,000 that are vying for public attention. However, this doesn't seem to widen our range of perspectives. For one thing, most major media outlets are still largely owned by large corporations, and so it limits the diversity of viewpoints presented. Now, people tend to gravitate toward news sources that can confirm their existing beliefs. This is known as confirmation bias, and it gets amplified greatly on social media. They curate their content based on users' past behavior and preferences, and it creates echo chambers where users are primarily exposed to information that only reinforces their existing worldview. So there's a shift in public engagement with the media. Now, in the film, they have the iconic line, "We're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore." That represented a passionate cry, a call for change. But now it seems like it's been replaced by a more passive Netflix and chill. There's a sense of resignation. There's an overwhelming amount of information, and it is difficult to discern the truth. Some compare our times to George Orwell's book, 1984. However, it might be more appropriate to quote Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. A really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which the all-powerful executive of political bosses and their army of managers control a population of slaves who do not have to be coerced because they love their servitude. And what is our servitude? It's the willing complicity to share our personal data with big tech. You know, it's 2024, and people are really tired. They're frustrated on issues like employment, the economy, housing, immigration. You know, back in 2016, there were a couple of new anti-establishment candidates that came about. One was Bernie Sanders in the early part of the election year. He challenged the Democratic establishment, but he didn't make it. Now, Donald Trump also came on the scene. He did capture the Republican Party. And the reason why they rose to prominence is because of the populist dissatisfaction with the status quo. Now it's 8 years later. It seems like Americans feel more marginalized and powerless than ever. This noble experiment of liberal democracy, the United States, it seems like it's in a state of arrested development. I would like to quote from Benjamin Studebaker's book, The Chronic Crisis of American Democracy, The Way is Shut. The crisis cannot be solved, the economy cannot be set right, and democracy cannot be saved. But American democracy cannot be killed either. Americans can't imagine any compelling alternative political systems. And so American democracy continues on in a deeply unsatisfying way. Americans invent more elaborate coping mechanisms in a desperate bid to go on. But it becomes increasingly clear that the way is shut. The American political system was made by those who are dead, and the dead keep it. Now, that sounds pretty serious. I still do believe in American democracy, but we've got some very important challenges ahead of us. And you know, George Carlin predicted this political disaster over 16 years ago.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all.
Whoa, that was from 2008, folks. Unbelievable. Now, I know some people are worried. I am too. There's some people believe that we used to have overarching stories that used to define the society's purpose and direction, like the American dream or ideals of social progress. It seems like those narratives have faded. You know, it seemed like we had a shared moral principles that guided behavior and fostered a sense of right and wrong. But now it appears we have distrust in our institutions, and the media creates a blurry line between truth and falsehood. It's much harder to agree on a set of facts today or a common understanding of events. Without a shared narrative about the future or the lessons from the past, we feel stuck and unsure of where to go next. But maybe there is some hope. I leave you with the Adam Curtis documentary, Can't Get You Out of My Head.
The third possibility is to try to imagine genuinely new kinds of futures, ones that have never existed before. But to do that, we as individuals will have to regain the confidence that we have lost in this frightened and uncertain time. But already the psychological theories that tell us we are weak and manipulable are cracking. And more people are beginning to realize that the fragmented emotions of anxiety and suspicion that they feel inside them may really be just the raw material for the technology corporations to feed off. It may be that we are really far stronger than we think. The one thing that is certain is that the world of the future will be different, and that the people in that future will feel and think differently too. If we can regain our confidence, we will find that we have the power to influence how that future turns out. And as a first step, we have to start imagining what kind of future it is we want to build. The anthropologist and activist David Graeber, who died last year, described the forgotten idea that is waiting to be rediscovered, and how thrilling it could be. The ultimate hidden truth of the world, he wrote, is that it is something we make, and could just as easily make differently.
I want to thank two of my very talented friends, the amazing illustrator Steve Epting for my new logo artwork, and Mark Foy for his original music composition for my show theme. Again, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button.